Yeah, that's right. That intro is back. The intro's
Backing it
back.
back.
Back to back. Don't talk. Remember Yak? That was the social
Yeah.
media platform for a little, where you could just like talk about shit regionally with like anonymously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It was really that happened like what was that freshman year of college,
yeah. It was
sophomore
like
year of college?
a hot minute, then disappeared.
Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder if it was because exactly the age range and setting that we were in could create a really bad environment with
Yeah,
something
I
like
think
that.
so. I think it was meant for like suburban areas where it's like, oh, here's the house party, and like the ops can't find out, right? Which the ops
Yeah,
could
back when the
definitely,
ops,
definitely find out, right?
yeah, back when the ops meant something different.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, short-lived yak. But welcome to the Yakaverse. We're back with the yak. Um, God, somebody stop me. It's been a week. We said
Stop. Oh, it's okay.
I don't know what to do when I hear stop. Do I put my hands up? Do I run? Do I ignore them? It all depends on how pale I am that week. Um,
How much sunlight there was?
yeah, the sunlight deprivation might allow me to get away with more. Um, Today we're going to talk about sports drama. As always, it's been a long week for both of us. Chris, I'm assuming, you know, the environment is not up to code. Uh,
Definitely not.
I am assuming that the school year is starting again, and that my superiors would like to lay down lay down the law a little bit more and
Ooh,
put in a bunch of restrictions and check up on us more than they ever have. So
someone justifying their jobs, I see.
justifying their jobs. Which is like, are you guys doing your jobs? I'm like, wait.
My job is to
Are
harass you about your job.
are you? Who's checking you? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Chris, fill it in.
Then where is it?
Thank you. Um, it is here. We are talking about the drama of sports. We are gonna check in on what we are drinking today because I think I have a couple beers that I will bring in depending on
Ooh.
if time allows. It is that very wonderful time of the year where we are in the middle of the NFL season, which means Thursday night football is going to interfere with us every other week. And it just so happens that one of our significant others may or may not like the Giants of New York, and
Which is just, it's a shame, really.
and the Giants of New York may or may not play tonight, and therefore,
Well, they certainly weren't playing the past two. Okay, never
what are
mind.
you talking about? They played last week.
Yeah, they did play last week against
Cardinals
exactly.
Monday. No, Sunday.
Yeah, the de facto worst team in the league.
Yo, that was crazy though. Like they were down to that and then came back. It was interesting. Um,
Yeah,
but them their Steelers had a good game.
them there Steelers, man. I don't know what it is with them there Steelers.
And what I
I'm
mean by
huge question mark.
them their Steelers, I meant TJ Watt recorded his first ever touchdown,
Huge deal, I think.
which is insane because he is on track to being one of the most prolific uh, linebackers in terms of sacks.
Which why is he listed as a linebacker? He is literally a defensive end. I hate positioning and all
Yeah.
that. Like at this point, it's like basketball,
However,
positionless.
right, exactly. LeBron brings the ball up. Wait a minute, he's not a point guard.
He's a point forward. What's a
Right.
point forward?
Well,
He's a point center. What
this
does
way.
that mean?
This is a point forward. Uh,
Jesus. You had to
uh,
reach into the index for that
no, I
joke
just had to go forward.
with the index.
uh, but I was actually quite shocked. Like it was never one of those like stats that I thought about. But when he recorded his touchdown this week, and They were like, this is his first touchdown. It's like his first fucking touchdown? It's surprising and not surprising. So, anyway.
What is surprising, honestly, is the way you guys played in that game after the week one. That's not how I was expecting your defense to play.
They showed up a little more. First play of the game, pick 6.
Crazy. I started Deshaun Watson. Well, it was him or Dak, and Dak put up 5 points in a 40-point blowout.
You have Dak? Wait. I want to get into our topic so bad, but you have Dak and Deshaun Watson. Didn't Deshaun Watson, isn't he, what was it? What was his charge? Was it sexual assault? Was it rape? What was that?
I would call it sexual assault. Yeah. It was an auto draft because for some reason they were drafting the day we were driving to New York for the US Open. What was I supposed to do?
You've been in these situations often.
With this league, these guys,
pick the worst
and I'm tired of the disrespect.
Yeah, it almost feels premeditated. It almost feels like they know your schedule. What is this? Like, have they hacked your email? What's going on?
I don't know, man. I don't know, because the draft was going to be that Thursday, which is perfect for me because that was the day after I got back, so I could have participated. Instead, they moved it to that Sunday, and I'm just like, okay, I can't do it. I've been able to do it once in like 5 years.
Yeah, no, this feels targeted. I hate to bring that up.
Yeah, throw the flag. It's targeting. And it's crazy, the disrespect, because I'm a top 3 finisher the past 3 years.
You're a
and
top?
I still don't get the. Yeah, 3 times. And I finished.
All right.
Anyway.
There's just so much. I'm overwhelmed. Let's get into today's topic. But first,
beer.
That's right. What are you drinking, Chris? What
you drinking, Smokey?
Smokey!
Smokey back here drinking a Crowler. This is dancing. This is Crowler Dancing Gnomes Infinite Highway, which is their Imperial IPA. As you can see. Ooh.
It's the Infinite Highway, the highway between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Wait, is that why it's called Infinite Highway?
Because it just takes forever.
It does take forever. I will 100% back that. That would actually be a great name for a beer. And that's also the highway that a guy walked from Philly back to Pittsburgh. Do you remember that story?
Vaguely.
Have you ever heard that story?
Vaguely.
MLB story. The Phillies, who were not a good team, playing the Pirates with Barry Bonds, in his MVP heightness. And yeah, we were losing by 10 runs. and the announcer for Pittsburgh's like, if we lose this game, I'll walk back to Pittsburgh. They lost the game.
And they walked.
And he walked back to Pittsburgh. Well, after the season was over, he walked from Philly to Pittsburgh. So he did it. Crazy.
That's respectful. Respectable.
It is, but the story of that game is one of the most unbelievable things ever.
I remember. I think we've talked about it on the show a couple times.
Probably, but anyway, speaking of Pittsburgh, Dancing Gnome from Pittsburgh, their IPAs are always on point. Mm-hmm. And Imperial IPA is obviously right up our alley. And this is just amazing. And it was funny because this is a 32-ounce Crowler. It was $13. And right? It's like $13, and like the guy filled it, and he went to ring me up, and it comes up on the screen, and he looks, and then he has to walk over and look at the screen. He's like, I just had to double check that this was right. That just seems really, that's a good price for this.
I'm gonna get a couple.
It's like, I love Dancing Gnome. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you know what? Just give me 4. Just give me 4.
Seriously, you said that. I was like,
yeah, I probably should have gotten another one, huh? And what I love about Bresky's is they give you the option for the twist off lid, which is a game changer with growlers. So this is
that's part of Migos, right?
Migos?
Twist off? R.I.P. Too soon?
Okay, we're gonna have to offset that negativity with some good beer reviews here. This is like, I'm just waiting for this line to take off.
I was gonna say, anytime 9/11 pops up, any joke prior, like that happened prior to 9/11 of that year, automatically resets. Or maybe it offsets.
Or maybe it takes off. God damn it.
Remember when Instagram used to flag us?
Yeah. But that was only for criticizing Instagram. We could say whatever else we wanted. But if we complained about how bad Instagram was, then we get flagged.
Yeah, then we got taken off.
Yeah, it really wants to make you take a shot of Jose Cuervo. So this beer here, Imperial, it's like 7.5%. Oh no, it's 8% actually, and it is damn good for a Dancing Gnome. I think it's right up there. I would go with like a 4 or 5 probably for this one here.
Okay.
Have you? I think we've had this at their location,
which has been our go-to post Barrel and Flow location.
Yes. And we always last time we met Ale Sharpton there.
Yeah. I think it, and there was a lot of people there from Barrel and Flow after that one. The first time it was just us, but this time was like there were like a couple tables full. So
true. So yeah, Dancing Gnome, check them out. They're far more available now outside of the Pittsburgh area, I'd say, in the past year.
Oh yeah.
I started seeing them pop up more. So their ales are great. Their Pilsner is great. If they do an Oktoberfest, I would love to have their Oktoberfest. Fucking hell. Okay. What are you drinking, bud?
I am drinking, it's called a Fresh Patch. Yes.
Ah, we're getting into the pumpkin spirit.
Oh, yes, we are. Not all pumpkin ales are created equal. We named our Fresh Patch due in large part to using hundreds of pounds of local pumpkins and blending them with our secret spice recipe to create this exceptional brew. The results in a medium-bodied ale with a fresh pumpkin pie aroma, complemented with flavors of pumpkin and spice in every sip. All treat, no trick. This is from Wormtown Brewery. That would be in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Worcester.
A piece of mass in every glass.
A piece of what?
Mass.
When you said, what was it, pumpkin spice and what? I thought you were going to say pumpkin spice and everything nice.
With a fresh pumpkin pie. Oh no, where is that?
What a fresh.
With flavors of pumpkin and spice in every sip.
Big nice. Oh, every sip. Okay.
Every sip.
Whatever. Everything nice was better.
Whatever. This is bullshit. I quit.
Yeah, let's get a deal. You make that, and then you talk. Then it's Massachusetts, and it just reminds me. I every once in a while, I periodically go back to the SNL Sam Adams skit.
Your cousin from Boston.
It's such a good skit.
Yeah. And I think what was so funny about that skit is it happened, and then Sam Adams actually teamed up with Bill Burr and did commercials.
I actually didn't know that. Like official commercials.
You know what? Maybe they weren't official commercials. I'll have to look into that. But right after, I feel, and maybe I have my timing all wrong, but it went from the Bill Burr SNL skits to Your Cousin from Boston, like those ones where...
Yeah, so they definitely did go that, like, they definitely did, like, lean into the Southie esque.
And I thought what was so funny was like the satirical. There's obviously Bill Burr being very satirical about it, but then there was the Cousin from Boston skit was just like, you're an Eagles fan, who cares? Like it was just like
the most recent one where it's like he's dreaming that everyone from Boston is nice and polite. It's like, you take the parking spot. No, you take out the parking spot. Yeah, like it's such a legendary name. It's funny because it's the Jacko Pumpkin beer that they're like pushing in that skit, and it just came out.
Yeah,
like their pumpkin ale.
All I know is their marketing team is wicked smart. So
wicked smart.
Which I'm going to a holiday party soon from someone from that. So I'm gonna have a wicked good time.
Wicked good time. You like pumpkins? How about these pumpkins?
How do you like? Have they done that?
How you like them pumpkins?
How do you like this pumpkin patch? Is this? Never mind. I was gonna go dark.
It should just be like a husband and wife in a store, like in the produce section, trying to like pick out fruit. How you like these apples? You like apples? How about these apples?
Don't they have Angry Orchard? Is that not part of their shit?
I think you're right. If it's not, then they have cider in their portfolio.
Which it's just right in their face. It's wicked smart. We had things to talk about today.
But you know what? This is what this episode was really about. It's about catching up. It's about friends.
When did we talk about tomatoes?
When the fuck did we get ice cream?
Catch up.
Oh, and you are correct. Sam Adams owns Angry Orchard.
You know, we should have a running like score every time someone mentions the right ownership of a brand. They get a point.
Okay.
Every time someone alludes to an ownership that's incorrect, -5 points.
5.
I am terribly in the negative right now.
I was going to say,
I can't tell you how many times I'm like, yes, owns this.
Here's the thing too, like I feel like if you say, oh yeah, Anheuser-Busch owns this, if you're right, you should only get like 1/4 point.
So who owns Wicked Weed?
That's Anheuser-Busch.
I've been screaming from the rooftop, Sam Adams has Wicked Weed.
Wait, hold on. Okay, Wicked Weed owner.
Yeah,
because Anheuser-Busch like drove them into the ground, right? Yeah, Anheuser-Busch.
Boston Beer Company owns
Boston Beer Company.
Boston.
Dude, Boston Beer Company. Boston Beer Company.
Because I'm from Boston. Anyway, what we're talking about is the drama in sports.
We don't know what that drama means, so we got to take some Dramamine.
6 foot, 7 foot.
As the Professor Emeritus at Rap University, Corey Guns once said.
Oh my god!
You don't know what that drama means. Take some Dramamine.
But so we're looking at a couple things. You know, last time we were on here, we talked about Ben Shelton playing Djokovic, and I was very forthcoming about how I felt about a seasoned player, especially Djokovic, someone that I don't particularly like anyway, answering the call that Ben Shelton had answered. And you and I had speculated on a bunch of different things and how people might feel. I think you and I were of the same mind that it was kind of I don't want to go as far as saying classless, but it was just like, it wasn't a thought through response, and it was just a very arrogant and privileged type of moment. And
see, here's where, and this is where the discussion can unfold. Yeah. As I think about this, and I'll tell you why. Okay. So, like, I have mixed feelings about the way Ben is on the court. And I think the mixed feelings, I feel like the negativity of it to me is like it's coming up, but I don't necessarily think it's warranted, if that makes sense. Like, it's coming up like for me, who has played a sport where being cocky like that has repercussions, physical repercussions, like, but that's the thing, like, he's a football player. He played college tennis, which has that feel to it already, but then also he was a football player. So, like, that's yes,
you're absolutely right. The difference between the professional circuit, the
pre-professional
circuit, and college. You know, I think high school tennis teams start to try to make a push towards what a college tennis team actually looks like, but it's still that weird thing because you're dealing with a lot of players that don't really understand that you have your academy players that are never really going to touch. Your top academy players are never really going to touch the collegiate like side, except for maybe 1 year, 1 semester, whatever. But then you have your public school or private school like players who are going to be in scholastic, and then you're going to hit collegiate, and then maybe you don't last in collegiate that long, but like you're still in that environment. And so it is very much this team sport. It is this braggadocious. It is this very different culture.
It's very different
than what your pro circuit and what your pre-pro circuit probably looked like.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate that context because you have that knowledge that I don't, experiencing it yourself and kind of understanding what that's like.
Especially from a public school era, like
yeah, exactly.
You think of tennis as this prim-propered, white-collared club thingy versus like, let's get rowdy.
Yeah, I think like I enjoy Ben's energy because like it's bringing it. Now he brings more of the college. He obviously college tennis. He won a national title, right? But like he brings like that football, like 7-on-7 football skill player aspect to it as well, and like I enjoy it a lot. And I think he can get into issues in terms of this right here, right? Like he got so fucking schooled by Djokovic because I wanted Ben to win that match, like running away, but like he got schooled, and I think. But here's why I don't hate what Djokovic did, and this is why I love Ben's response. I think, like, with guys like Nick Kyrgios in the past, who maybe the tension was a little more warranted because he's a little more volatile, Ben's more of like a competitive, happy-go-lucky, and just like competitive person versus Nick is a little abrasive. But like the reaction that a lot of people had towards like someone like Monfils, for example, where it's like this is completely unwarranted because he's not acting in a particular way. I think Djokovic like just met Ben's energy with Ben's energy on the court. But what he didn't do was he didn't go off in the press conference after and completely trash him. And you could tell there was tension there in terms of like they didn't give like a super huggy handshake or whatever. It was a very just like professional, like good job, and that was it. But like he didn't go trash him afterwards. So I feel like I didn't mind that because it was more of a listen, if you want to dish it, and this is how it is in like that football culture, right? It's like if you want to dish it, you have to be ready to take it.
But he didn't dish
and he was ready to take it.
But he didn't dish it at Djokovic, though. That was the thing for me.
He didn't dish it at Djokovic, but you gotta think like. So what he did do was dish it at Tiafoe, and I think Tiafoe is one of those guys that like he has a swag, but he doesn't swag at his opponent.
Yeah.
And so like there's kind of that idea of like you're going. Tiafoe doesn't go at you, but you're going at him.
Yeah, but that's fair.
And so, but this is all in the spirit of competition now, and that's why I think it's okay because in the spirit of competition.
Yeah, I'm asking on the other side of it though. It's just like, okay, so like in the spirit of competition, fine, yes, all well and fine, especially if even playing field. However, it is especially tennis, I guess, because it is a sport that is a little more international, I guess, versus like a lot of our professional sports that tend to be just Americanized and maybe a few European players that make it in or African players that make it in or other like whatever, but it's largely in part an American like thing, right? I think about football mainly, but so Ben and Tiafoe are like it's an American like thing that's like them coming at each other versus the now world.
Sure.
So that's an element too that I thought it was it a call of like the sport in general, or was it the call of answering the call for American sports? While that might be a little more contentious and a more like conversational piece, and I can see where a lot more rivalry and butting heads could have came from. I think that's where then when Djokovic did it to me, that I just didn't think it was his realm to be talking.
Hmm.
So that's where I was looking at it from.
So I don't think, me personally, I don't think Ben's celebration was in the realm of saying more. It wasn't. No, yeah, it wasn't that because he just beat an American when he did it. I think it was it was just personal. It was like, I just beat you. You've been up here, and I came along, and they had a very contentious match.
Yeah.
Not contentious, like a competitive match previously in that Ultimate Tennis Showdown thing, where you could tell Tiafoe and Shelton were like, they kind of had that competitive tension. So like that was that answering the call thing to me, that was me. I'm here, me. I did it right now. It's me answering the call.
So what call was Djokovic answering? He was supposed to win.
No, he was shutting the call down, basically. I think it was a clever response. And if it was anyone else, I feel like it wouldn't be a big deal, to be completely honest, in this sense. And I don't like some of the things Djokovic does. I hate like his like when it comes to his it's like me and Djokovic. It's like it's weird because
you have a close personal relationship.
Yeah. Novak or Novi, as I like to call him, like he Vac. All of like the ulterior medicine stuff and like the way he promoted it during COVID, I strongly disagreed with. And I really didn't like the way he handled that. And I think that was where he felt, above it all in terms of holding the whole that whole tennis tournament in the middle of COVID, as if that wasn't going to go wrong.
Everyone that got COVID during that tournament?
Yeah, which I don't. All the other players that were there don't get enough slack for that.
No, but every player got COVID.
Yeah, all the dickheads that were there for that. But other than that, like, he can be a dick on the court. He doesn't seem like a dick off the court. I think he's a little has that like Tom Brady, Michael Jordan psycho competitiveness like in the moment to hype themselves up to continue type of deal. So like I'm not a huge fan. Obviously I don't like Tom Brady much as a player.
What about Jordan?
But I like Jordan, but like the whole psycho competitive thing, like that's not really my jive. Yeah. So I think that's where I'm not a big fan of it. Like I completely get it if that's what gets you going, then it's what gets you going. It's just not how I get going, so I can't relate to it. So it's just more like not my cup of tea. Right. But generally, Djokovic, like he gives props to players on good points. He's generally cordial with people. I think in this one it was just a competitiveness thing. Yeah. Like I honestly feel like if Ben responded saying, you know, he won, so it's his right to celebrate, and you know, if I'm gonna dish it, I have to be ready to take it, and I completely agree with him.
I'm of two minds of this, and by that I mean I'm drunk. For anyone. For anyone that watched the Bob Burgers movie, that was a great reference for you. The first is, you know, I think Ben Shelton's response to it all was just good, grade A, like classful, like classy. That's a response. That, you know, that is the mindset that you need to have going into it. He dished it out. He should be able to like return it. I think from me, where it comes to from everything is, again, acknowledging the point that, yeah, Ben was the one that did the call. He did all of this. This is a young player. This is someone that should, for all intents and purposes, get to enjoy this. I think if the next match between him and Tiafoe, if Tiafoe won and Tiafoe went like this, I'd have no issue with that. But this is somebody who's like went to his Kobe era of championships, Grand Slams, not just championships. I'm pretty sure this is a Grand Slam, like 24th, right?
Right. But there it is right there, right? He was friends with Kobe, who, while he was actually competing, yeah, when he knew he could still compete, was the biggest dick to everyone, including his own teammates.
Heard.
And then as soon as he knew in himself that like, oh shit, like I'm no longer the greatest and I no longer can physically compete, all of a sudden you saw like his actual personal
be okay. I don't like Kobe for that shit either. Like that's
so you cannot like him, but like
no,
you can't use that then to say
I recognize that, but I would critique Kobe the same way that I'm critiquing Djokovic. I think is where I'm at with this too. And so while Kobe would have done it, I still would have called Kobe out on all of that shit too. I still called Kobe out when he was doing his fucking like rapey shit, right?
Which is fair enough. That's fair enough. I just think the you know what it is for me? You know what it is for me? It is the fact that he didn't fan the flames after and didn't put him on it, because I think that's what I was trying to get to earlier was I think you could see contention and icy responses towards people like Monfils in terms of like people talking the tennis, or like Kyrgios, which is a little more warranted, but still like you can kind of see that it's kind of like old guard saltiness in a way from older players, where it's like here he just shot it down like, I just liked the celebration. I thought it was a cool celebration, so I was going to cop. And then he left it at that. He didn't say,
so
you know, older players need respect, and this young guy, this and that. Like he didn't go there. He didn't go there.
And I agree. What I will say is where you are coming from is definitely the district response. It's the, you know, it's just how this type of shit happens. You and I grew up on street basketball. We know what this is, right? Like that's clear as day. It's whatever it is. You're making the argument from the side, because I love this because it doesn't happen for us often. You're making one argument, I'm making the other argument, right? So your argument being, he dished it out, he should be able to take it, and I think that's very well and fine, and I agree. And we have more than enough responses. The Pistons dished out shit to Jordan, and what did he do? He turned around and dished it right the fuck back, right? This shit happens. And I'm just making the claim on the other side just to give that full, well-rounded, open dialogue of, was it absolutely necessary? And it might be, another argument that we had, again, the very few times that we maybe not agree on everything is the bat flip in baseball. I think you and I have had some contentious conversations about a fucking bat flip. I think this is the bat flip of tennis. And
bat flip, you know what? That's a good way to put it. But in general, it is the bat flip of tennis. And you know what? I think it's fine.
And with that being said,
I think it's fine.
And with that being said, I don't think there's a need for any more conversations, talking points on this, because I think you have very well gone through the angle there, and I've gone through the angle here, and I would say not agree to disagree, because I fucking hate that statement, but I have nothing left to say.
One other thing I will say, and this is just more of this is more of a context thing. I also think what spurred that in the moment was, once again, it's more at the crowd, not at him.
It's an American crowd. Fuck Djokovic.
Yes. However, the history of Djokovic in American crowds,
fuck him,
has been crazy. And not because, and rarely because he was playing an American, if we're being real.
You know what? I take everything back that I said. Yeah. You're a fucking horrible co-host, and this is the end of the podcast.
It's an American crowd, but it's a New York crowd. You know what New York crowds can be. It's New York. And right across the street from the Mets. Are we going to substantiate the Mets on this podcast? In this establishment, are we going to defend the Mets? No, we're not. Exactly. So, to forthwith, the U.S. Open crowd and Djokovic have had a contentious relationship, and it's not always been because of Americans. So we can't say America, because America for this. It's just, this is just, to me, it's third party. It's two third parties for myself, which would be a second and third party, but whatever. It's two parties that are unaffiliated with me, and I think he was going at the fans more than he was going at Shelton. And I think he thought doing this was going to dig into the fans a little bit more, less at Shelton. Because I think Shelton's fine with it.
He is.
Also, I just want to see a rematch.
I'm more pissed off of it than Shelton will ever be. What I want you to do is I want you to take this conversation from Shelton to Shelton's dad to Buffalo.
Wow, that's a tall task. Let's see if I can fit the bill with this one. So Shelton's dad. So Shelton's dad was the one in all of this who had the issue, as he had a GQ interview, which is random, but.
Was he the GQ interview? Is Shelton's dad a swaggy individual?
I don't know. I really don't know. Is he like Pat Mahomes' dad, who's swaggy? But Pat Mahomes' dad was also, a professional athlete. I don't know.
LeVar Ball.
I wouldn't call LeVar Ball swaggy. I would say he's a hype builder. For sure. But swaggy? No.
What about
LeVar Ball's not swag. Nick Young? Oh, Swaggy P? Shoot a three, turn around, do this, and it's an air ball? Swaggy P. I love Swaggy P on the Sixers. Anyway.
2K, I love Swaggy P because he actually drains buckets, but I don't know what happens.
He's a 2K hero. Swaggy like him. Who else in 2K was just great for no reason? DJ Augustine.
Fucking Chris Bosh from Half Court.
Chris Bosh was very good at 2K. DJ Augustine, fucking I remember cooking Bryant with Giannis Antetokounmpo when he was a rookie and he was like a 64 overall.
Is it what is it? Corey Fisher? Who am I thinking of?
Oh, for the Lakers, you mean? Derek Fisher? 2K. He was insane in 2K. He made everything.
He cooked me every time when I was playing like my 2K, he would cook me and everything. I'm like, how the fuck did this happen?
Yo, fucking Kirk fucking Heinrich on the Bulls. I couldn't beat him. I don't get it. Kirk Heinrich. Anyway,
it's the embodiment of on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. On paper, in video game.
Ben Shelton's dad
had a problem. Yeah, he had a problem. He was mocking. He said that Djokovic was mocking Ben. Whether you believe that or not, Ben came out and said that he didn't mind it, and if you win, you deserve to dish out what you were dished, or you deserve to dish it because you won, type of deal. And I think I enjoyed Ben's response to that because he dishes a lot. And that showed to me that he's dishing it out of competitiveness and out of just like the competitive spirit of it, and not necessarily to be personal. I think he just feeds off of the competitive fire between two people, and that's what I think tennis needs more of. So, in closing, I want Ben to continue being like that on the court. I think it's good for tennis. But Ben Shelton's dad just needs to stop being so damn sensitive.
You know what? That synopsis, that whole like paragraph was finger licking good, like the icing. You introduced the topic, you cited what you were talking about, and then you explained it so well.
It was some ice, baby.
Yeah, not only was it some ice, baby, but it had the spice with it as well. And you know what? Ben Shelton's dad is a munch.
So transitioning into someone who I'm assuming is not much of one, but this is kind of related to tennis, oddly enough, because Buffalo Bills owner Terry Pegula, who is star tennis player Jessica Pegula's grandfather.
No shit.
Yeah, bro, you didn't know that?
Nope.
Or you just that's her granddad. So Terry Pegula was cited in a lawsuit by a sports reporter, cited Jerry Jones and Terry Pegula for discriminatory language practices, this type of thing. Apparently back in 2020, Jerry Jones was in a conversation at the Hall of Fame game, the first preseason game, mentioning, he was asked a question of what can we do to get Black people in more decision-making roles in organizations? And he mentioned, well, if Blacks want power, they could make their own team and hire their own people, whoever they want. So it's kind of like that. Oh, so basically what you're saying is go back to Africa. What Terry Pegula actually is alleged to say is go back to Africa.
So Jerry Jones said, like, if you want power, go back to where you can create power. And
Jerry Jones is basically separate but equaling the shit out of the NFL, while Terry Pegula was like, get the fuck out of our country. Kind of deal. Okay. Oh, if you don't like it here, go to Africa and see and you'll see what real struggle is or some bullshit like that. Like there isn't struggle in America anywhere. Only Africa is there, people struggling to get clean water and eat, as if Africa is the only place in the world that has issues like that. That's what kills me
And I
about
think
that statement.
yeah, no, what kills me is like that they treat Africa as a continent as a third world country.
As just one country. Exactly. Crazy.
Yeah, with that being said, it's just like it is a crazy like concept to think of. Like you see all these things that happen, not just in sports but just in society as well, over and over again. And it's to say like, well, if you don't like it, well, why don't you do like this for yourself? And it's just like, okay, cool, let's break this down and like let's talk about what that actually means. It goes, okay, cool. So if we go back to the founding of the NFL, or founding of a American Football League, right? Let's talk about what it looks like to be a black person financially back then, and then let's go from there to now.
Yep.
And let's, you know what, reverse that. Let's go from now to then and see the organizations that have roots within the like the ownership, who still has roots to the beginning to now, or how far back they actually go. And
right.
let's talk about that and what that looks like, and then let's talk about not now, but let's talk about then. And so we'll go back to every organization's origin, and we'll talk about what it looked like to be a black person then, because that's actually what we're talking about in terms of ownership. So if we want to talk about, well, if you don't like it, why don't you go to somewhere that you could have the power? What other like organization is that young to have this conversation about? Because it's not many, and to be that young but to have this many issues, civil rights issues associated to it, and not from back when it started, but currently.
Yeah, currently, as in like the past 10 years, right? What's crazy is like, it's kind of like the craft beer thing. I think craft beer is a perfect example. I did not pull this out of my ass.
Yeah, you pulled it out of your mass.
Right now. I did it earlier so that no one could see it. So that no one could see it on YouTube. So here it is. I watched it. No, I rinsed it off. Spritz, yes. Put on the. So think about all the people that would love, as black people in craft, that would love to open up a brewery. Think about the few people that have. Then think about the people in general, not just black people, that have tried to open up a brewery. All the money it takes, all the time it takes, all of the difficult challenges along the way. But the money part, right?
Right.
The fact is, why don't they just go do their own thing? And it's like, because how can you, right? How can you do your own thing? That's where I think, and that's not even like, so, oh, the black players want their own thing. Why don't they start their own team? Okay, they start an organization and they draft, or they hire a bunch of black athletes for their team. Cool. They aren't affiliated with the NFL. They would have to petition to get into the NFL. And guess who gets to vote on their inclusion? The fucking owners that have these ideas associated with them. And that would be splitting and sharing revenue with them. So here's like that double-edged sword, right? It's just like the game is rigged already.
And I hate to give it to them, but here is where,
don't give it to them.
Maybe soccer has it right with the regulations.
Well, you said soccer, so we're not giving it to him. I like it.
But you know what I mean? Like, at least there's a fair shot. Like, you do well, you get up. But it's also, how do you control the Yankees from killing the Reading Phillies?
Right. It is that difficulty, right? And I don't know enough about, so I agree with that because I feel like that is a better system in terms of if you want to allow more participation.
Yes.
What
I'm
what
listening.
is heck? If you want to allow more participation, that's the way to do it. But I don't know enough about the football, and by football I mean actual football, not American football. I don't know enough about the actual structure of that to comment on, what are some of the ways that things like that are prevented from happening, because I know it's like you have to be able to place well enough over time, and if you don't, then you drop, and people who are up here, they move up, so they're now in the bottom of the top, so it's like a rung tier type of system. But what are some of the things that are I'm sure there are, like, some of the things in place to prevent a team that was up here, they have a couple down years, maybe due to injury or something, right? And then they drop down here and they just start mauling everyone. Maybe it is they drop the tier, now their payroll can only be this much. So they have to either cut payroll or cut the players that are getting paid absorbent amounts, and those players can go play for better teams if they want.
What if I learned
And maybe
anything?
that'll.
I was gonna make a Ted Lasso joke, but there's actually a Vox thing about tennis players, and this is where it all comes to play. And I think this is also an argument to be made about craft beer. You know, with an industry that is booming, um, the
Boom that
pay,
industry.
the pay rate in that booming industry doesn't seem to be doing as well as like that inflation, like not even that inflation, but like for as many craft beer jobs that open up and as for as many craft breweries open up, like it doesn't seem like there are these, crazy job opportunities for you, okay?
Yeah.
It still seems if you're a brewer, you don't get paid that well, right? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't read enough, right? I don't read. Don't.
I feel like that's just and that's kind of that's a general issue with American society in general.
But what I was going to comment on is Vox released an article about, we talk about this every once in a while, is tennis players aren't part of a team. They're not part of an organization that pays you to travel, that pays for your lodging, that pays for your trainer, that pays for your coach, that does any of these things, right? You pay for that out of pocket, right? And so, yeah,
Right.
maybe, you're talking about, oh, Coco didn't like play more matches than Djokovic for this, but Coco in the long run is paying more than Djokovic because of, she's not bringing in as
Sponsorship.
much and everything like that, right? And
Sponsorship.
exactly.
Dollars.
And so they actually talked about how much a tennis player makes versus a player in any organization, soccer being one of the best organizations to be a part of.
Right.
And tennis being one of, if not the worst organization.
I would say I feel like any individual sport is probably going to be like the worst.
Awful, because you have W2A, you have the ITF, or like whatever all these things are. You have whatever you have the USTA, you have whatever the French version of it is, you have whatever the Australian version of it is, and they all operate as their own entities versus operating as an actual league and whatever. So even though the Premier League, the MLA, like all these other leagues operate in this capacity, they still operate under an umbrella that works up and down with each other and actually creates better share of ownership versus tennis. And that's what the question comes into. Is like, we're arguing about a very minute difference. What do men get paid versus what do women get paid versus, holy shit, their share is like less than 10%,
Or say if you restructure the entire thing, everyone gets paid more.
Less than 10%, or maybe 10% versus like 60%.
And that's the crazy part, because basically they're independent contractors. Like you could think of it as like they're basically they're their own team in the league, except they don't get any revenue from the people showing up to watch their matches.
But the question is, how do we relate what we are talking about to craft beer? We're talking about.
So we reach back, right? And we'll put the glove on first and reach back.
We're talking about tennis players making around 10% of that shared profit from the whole organization. Like if the US Open is bringing in 100% of the shit, the player gets 10% and then everything else gets 90%. Versus Super Bowl is, and it's not an equal comparison, but like just for comparison's sake, Super Bowl is bringing in 100% of the profit, and maybe the players are getting 30 to 40%. Marginally different. World Cup and players are getting 60% of it. Marginally.
And in general, at least for the NFL, because it's been a big talking point, like the players versus the league, it's close. It's like
50.
Around 50 at any given time.
So they do talk about the NFL being very fair, right? So we go from 10, 30, 50, 60. And then we talk about 10, which tennis was the 10. But then we talk about craft beer, and we talk about very specific number of black ownership or minority ownership, and it being like 1. Or less than 1. And so if you're willing to have this conversation about 10%, 30%, 50%, 60 being the high end, so anything under 60 you're willing to fight about, then we should be able to realistically talk about 1%. And I don't even want to know what that comparison from men to women actually exists on a U.S. tennis like spectrum. But this is why this all
relates. Okay, I'm listening.
No, but that was my main point. Is we talked about maybe tennis in terms of the response thing, because it's the response of, I don't know, maybe Djokovic doing this is the response of Serena saying, "I will jam this ball down your throat," right? Maybe not, and I don't think it is. But like, why? Who do we actually like attack more for what? That's that conversation. But the other conversation we had last time we were on a live was about like the price comparison, like who gets paid what and what should be equal and everything like that. And we're talking about a sport that doesn't get paid equal dividends in the first place, and now we're arguing within the sport and not looking outside of that sport.
Yeah.
So I think that's the comparison back to brewing.
You're right. And you know what? You sent an article about how kind of we're in this middle of like kind of like a generational shift, and we'll see what that brings. And it brings certain requirements that weren't there back in the previous generation. And I'm counting the previous generation as pretty much the start of craft beer. Maybe there was a generation in between that, but certainly while we were, if it was while we were kids, and that first generation being like super old school, like Stone Sierra and that's it type of deal, like those old school ones. But like that first generation where craft beer became a prevalent part of America, right?
Yeah.
I think this is really the first time where we're in that transition, and I would like to think that maybe this is the time to attack. Hit him with a Hawasa, hey, fight.
I hear you.
Pigeons. No, this is the time to attack. Yeah, this is the time to attack, right? Because now we're starting to get into where there's new people taking over. There's certain things that are now expected that weren't expected before, and generally, like, sure, it's craft beer, but it's still business. Business. So business has changed. Terms of business has changed. Like pretty much every decade, you can mark very distinct changes in the way business is conducted in general, despite the industry. And that comes in the terms of like,
that's not fair.
What?
2020 got hit with COVID. That's not fair.
Well, fuck 2020.
Well, like, what happened in 1920? Like, fuck off.
I don't know, but what happened like less than 10 years later?
What about 10 years after that?
I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But where we are is the craft beer scene. So we're just business in general. Like you say, oh, the 80s was crazy on Wall Street. Yeah, the 80s was crazy. Yeah, exactly. That's the way people did business. That is not the way people do business now. That's not even the way people did business 20 years after the 80s, which is 20 years earlier than now.
Are you trying to say nobody does coke anymore?
That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it is not an open part of doing business. Like the whole, it's okay. So it's like a golf trip, right? Oh, like so many business deals. Shut up. So most people like, oh, business gets done. You don't know how much business gets done on a golf outing, right? It's like, that it's like, okay, what it was actually like back then is like, you know how much business gets done after the people did a line of coke in the office. Then it's, oh, you don't know how much gets done after they go out and have a few shots. Boom, 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 boom. Now it's like, and that's just one aspect of business. But now we're at the point where it's like, it's not an old boys club. So it can't just be, we're a bunch of guys. Let's figure this out between us as a bunch of guys. We're a bunch of white guys.
Yeah. I'm going to let you finish because we need to finish. But it's no longer an old boys club, but it pretty much still is an oh boy club. Finish what you had to say.
It's an old boys club because that's all I could say to that joke was oh boy.
Dipset.
Oh boy. Boy. No. So I feel like the expectations are changing, right? Like breweries now have to actually participate because it's a full-blown industry now, a full-blown national industry. Now they have to participate. They have the public eye on them. They have to actually care about these human rights issues that they didn't have to care about before, both because when they were coming up, it was in that time where they didn't, but also now the bottom line isn't affected by it. So I'm really hoping that people get put into place that kind of have these sensibilities in mind. And maybe it does take another generation for the vast majority of brewery owners to be, in our age range where they actually have the sensibilities that we have to be able to truly believe in inclusivity and really push towards, the idea of representation in craft beer.
True.
Because as we pulled out of our asses, that is exactly what we always want to come back to is, in all of this representation. Right. We talked about representation in tennis. We talked about representation in the NFL in this episode. And of course, we talked about representation in craft beer, and we always want to come back to that. And once again, it's about barriers of entry into not just as a consumer into the space, but certainly as a participant in the industry,
right?
In this case. And so, how do we get there? How do we get there, Tyler?
That's a great question to answer next time.
And until then.
But no, honestly, I gotta go check something on the breaker. But until next time, same bat channel, same bat place. I mean, alternative black place. Great question. I think it's something that we should revisit. Hopefully next time that we do this, I can bring the chat up. It didn't seem like we got...
Didn't seem like there was anything there.
Yeah,
I've been keeping an eye this time.
But thankfully, there's no spam accounts from Denmark. Don't watch our last channel. I'm going to try to figure out how to disable those chats because it was god-awful.
It really was.
But you know what? Denmark, it seems very close to where Chris is in Amsterdam. So I'm wondering. Hopefully he doesn't hear this, the ending of this episode.
Hopefully anybody doesn't hear this part. What the fuck?
But no, I'm just fucking around. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, hopefully the Eagles win a game, the Steelers win a game, and the Giants win a game.
You don't have to include that last part, Tyler.
I just care.
You really don't.
The Steelers. As long as we end up 500, Tomlin's okay. And we don't have to go back to Africa, so.
Yes, the entire African American sub race is relying on Mike Tomlin, and I hope he uses that.
Football.
In life.
Because it's what rule? What rules?
The Tomlin rule clearly. The Rooney rule. Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting talk point. Honestly, the Rooney rule and like the intent versus affirmative action, same deal. Like intent versus practice.
Talked about that
before in a previous life.
But until next time.
Peace.